Hello, I'm Dr. Robert Ellis. For nearly 4 decades, I've walked alongside those nearing the end of life. Not just as a physician tending to vitals or adjusting medications, but as a quiet witness, a hand to hold, a presence in the room when words have run out and silence becomes sacred. In all those years, I've encountered something I was never taught in medical school. It's not found in textbooks or clinical guidelines. It happens quietly, often in the final days or hours, and yet it leaves an imprint that's impossible to forget. I call it the final reach. That moment when a patient who may have been still and unresponsive suddenly opens their eyes, not to look at you, but at something or someone beyond, and then they lift their hand, slowly, gently, as if greeting a familiar face just out of view. Sometimes they smile. Sometimes they whisper names, loved ones long gone. Sometimes they simply say, "Come get me." In this video, I won't offer a scientific explanation, because we don't have one. Instead, I want to offer you a story, a glimpse, a moment that a grieving daughter captured on video and graciously allowed me to share. A moment where her father, near the end of his journey, reached out to what she believes was someone waiting for him. Was it real? A vision? A spiritual reunion? A final burst of neural activity? I don't know. But I do know this: it brought comfort. To him, to her, and to me, as someone who has seen this again and again, and still finds it as moving as the first time. So if you've ever wondered what it looks like when the veil begins to thin, when life begins to let go, this story may touch something deep in you, something beyond reason, something tender and true. Let's begin. I used to believe it was a hallucination, perhaps caused by medication or a lack of oxygen to the brain, or simply a byproduct of the body's slow unraveling as it approached death. That's what the science would suggest. And in my earlier years, I held on to those explanations with the same certainty that we hold on to stethoscopes and protocols, because they gave me a framework, a way to make sense of something so immense, so unfamiliar. As a young doctor, I needed the security of logic. I needed to believe that everything could be understood, categorized, managed. But over time, and after bearing witness to hundreds of these moments, I began to hesitate. I saw too many eyes light up at something no one else could see, too many hands reaching upward, not in confusion but with calm intention, even reverence. Too many patients, lucid and aware, telling me in quiet voices things like, "Doctor, my father is here. He's standing at the end of the bed. He says he's come to take me home." And when they said it, they didn't sound afraid. They weren't delusional or detached from reality. In fact, they sounded more grounded than ever, more at peace than they'd been in weeks. Their faces softened, their voices steadied, and there was something unmistakably real about the way they looked at that empty corner of the room, as if someone they loved was truly there. In those moments, I stopped trying to offer clinical corrections. I didn't explain away their visions. I didn't mention brain chemistry or oxygen levels or the half-life of morphine. I simply nodded. I held their hand. And I stayed silent, not out of confusion, but out of respect. Because sometimes peace is more important than proof. And really, who am I to take that away from them? If what they see brings comfort, if it eases their fear, if it helps them surrender with grace, then why should I demand a reason? Isn't the human spirit deserving of gentleness at the threshold of leaving this world? Isn't mystery allowed a seat in the room, alongside medicine? I have come to believe that these moments are not mistakes in the dying process. They are part of the process itself, perhaps even the most sacred part. I don't claim to know what lies beyond, but I've stood close enough to feel that something bigger than medicine is often present in the room. Something that science, in all its brilliance, still cannot name. And that's okay. As a doctor, I've learned that my job is not always to cure, or to fix, or to explain. Sometimes it is simply to bear witness, to hold the space, to honor the mystery. And that is what I try to do now. Every time I see a hand reach skyward, every time a patient whispers a name from long ago, every time the air grows still and something unspoken passes through, we are not just watching someone die, we are watching them go home. There was a family who once sent me a video of their father, a man in his final days, gently sedated so that his passing might be peaceful, free of pain or distress. They had done everything right, everything a family could do when they knew goodbye was near. He had been mostly unresponsive, resting quietly as his body slowed its rhythm, inching closer to the stillness we call death. But then, in one unexpected and tender moment, he awoke. His eyes opened, not with fear or confusion, but with a clarity that startled even his daughter. He looked upward, not at the ceiling but beyond it, as though something or someone was waiting there. And slowly, almost reverently, he raised his hand. It was not the twitch of a muscle or the restless movement of a sedated mind. It was a gesture of invitation, of recognition, of longing. He reached up as if to embrace someone just out of sight, and softly he whispered, "Come to me." Then, just as gently as he had awakened, he drifted back into sleep. There was no struggle, no panic, no need to hold on, only peace. His daughter, who had been quietly recording the moment, perhaps out of instinct, perhaps out of hope, captured that delicate exchange, and later, with tears in her eyes and gratitude in her voice, she told me, "That was the last gift he gave me, proof that he wasn't alone when he left." To her, it wasn't just a gesture, it was a message, a reassurance that there was something or someone waiting for him on the other side. That death had not come as a shadow, but as a reunion. And in that knowledge, she found comfort. She didn't need theology, she didn't need science. She had that moment, and for her it was enough. And for me, watching that video, it was a quiet affirmation of everything I've come to believe. That even at the very end, when the body is failing and the world begins to slip away, something deep within us knows the way home. And sometimes, if we're lucky, we catch a glimpse of it, through a lifted hand, a whispered name, a peaceful goodbye. Moments like this do not belong to textbooks. They belong to the heart. I don't know what awaits us beyond the veil. No doctor does, not really. We can study the body, measure its decline, name the systems that shut down one by one. But what comes after the final breath? What meets us in that last exhale? That remains a mystery, untouched by medicine. What I do know, with a certainty that years of observation have etched into my bones, is this. The moments of final reaching are unlike delirium. They are not like hallucinations. They don't carry the chaos or confusion that typically accompanies those states. Instead, they arrive quietly, gently, with a kind of order that feels intentional. And always, always, they come wrapped in something I can only describe as sacred. There is a stillness to them, a pause in the air. It's as if the room itself knows something is happening, something important, something profound. The patient reaches, the hand rises, a name is spoken, a smile flickers, and for a brief, shimmering moment, it feels as though we are standing on holy ground. Science hasn't explained it, maybe it never will, and I've stopped trying to make it fit into categories or charts or theories. I've stopped needing to know why. Instead, I've learned to witness, to bear silent, respectful witness, with reverence rather than reason, not as a physician looking for patterns, but as a human being honoring a passage. And I sometimes wonder if one day, in the quiet twilight of my own life, I too will see a familiar figure standing just beyond the veil. If I see my mother, her hand outstretched and her eyes filled with light, perhaps I too will smile, and I will lift my hand, just like all those patients of mine once did, and I will finally understand. If you are caring for a loved one in their final chapter, whether a parent, a life partner, a lifelong friend, you are standing at a sacred threshold. This is not merely the end of life as we know it. It is a crossing, a moment when science steps back and what remains is the quiet power of your presence, your love, and your trust in what cannot be seen. In these final days or hours, what you witness may not follow the rules of ordinary. Your loved one might begin to speak to someone who is invisibly in the room. They may smile at a corner of the ceiling, whisper a name from long ago, or lift their hand gently as if to greet someone only they can see. And you might feel unsure, helpless, even afraid. You might wonder if they are hallucinating, if something is wrong, if you should call someone. But I ask you, gently, sincerely, not to rush to conclusions, because maybe, just maybe, they are not lost in confusion. Maybe they are finding their way home. Maybe they are seeing a familiar face, someone they've longed for, mourned for, prayed to meet again, a mother waiting with outstretched arms, a child they never got to hold long enough, a beloved partner who promised they'd meet again. So if you find them reaching into the air, calling out softly, or drifting into conversation with someone you cannot see, don't panic. Don't pull them back. This may not be chaos. It may be ceremony. The sacred ritual of a soul preparing to let go. What they need from you in those moments is not an explanation, not a remedy. What they need is your presence, your calm, your tenderness. Hold their hand, even if that hand is growing still. Let your silence speak for you. Let your breath be a quiet prayer. And if you feel the urge to say something, say it with your whole heart. I'm here. You're not alone. You can go when you're ready. Because that presence, that steadiness, that love is the bridge between this world and whatever lies beyond. It is the light they will carry with them, the last human touch they will remember as they cross over. Not every life ends in solitude. Some souls leave this world in the middle of a homecoming. Some are not pulled from life. They are invited into love, into rest, into reunion. And if you are there, beside someone as they begin that journey, know this: you are not just a caregiver. You are a keeper of the flame, a witness to a mystery that no textbook can teach. And that, perhaps more than anything else, is the final gift you can give. Thank you for being here, truly. As we close today's reflection, I invite you to carry this one thought with you. Death is not always an ending. Sometimes it is a quiet return, a hand reaching not into emptiness, but into memory, into love, into home. If you've found yourself beside someone in their final moments, or if that time is approaching, know that your presence matters more than any words ever could. You don't need to fix, you don't need to understand, you only need to be there, with an open heart and a listening soul. And if one day you witness that upward reach, that faraway gaze, that whisper into the stillness, may you remember that you are not watching someone leave, you are watching someone arrive. This is Dr. Robert Ellis. Thank you for walking with me through this deeply human moment. If this message touched something in you, I invite you to share it with someone who needs comfort, who needs perspective, or who simply needs to know they are not alone. Until next time, stay gentle, stay grounded, and keep your heart open to the mystery